And Valcom is a manufacturer of hardware and software for emergency communications infrastructure. The purpose of today's webinar is to give you insights to improve your emergency communications through the principles of preparation, delivery, reach, and time. This will be a panel discussion. We will cover those 4 principles, and then we will have a Q&A where you can use the Q&A button on your webinar interface to ask questions, time permitting. So it looks like I've got the majority of our panelists with us. We were having a couple of little technical difficulties, so I will go ahead and proceed as we had planned with introducing our panelists in order. The first panelist is Paula Hans, who is the Public Information Officer at Douglas County School District. Paula has over 25 years of combined experience in crisis and incident response, media relations, public relations, marketing, and broadcast television. As previously mentioned, she works for the Douglas County School District, which is Colorado's 3rd largest school district. Paula has served as a public information officer for some of the country's largest tragedies, including the Aurora movie theater shooting and the STEM school shooting. Prior to joining Douglas County School District, Paula managed media relations for Aurora Public Schools, also in Colorado. And her career began in television news as a reporter, anchor, and producer, working for several stations in several states. Next, we have Hylet Veal. Hylet is the Director of Judicial Services for Jeffco Public Schools in Jefferson County, Colorado. She is a member of the district's Department of School Safety Management team. Part of her role is training on school and district level threat assessment and safety plans. She's worked in education for over 15 years, 10 of those at colleges and universities in Colorado, Florida, and Utah. She currently serves on the board of directors for the I Love You Guys Foundation as vice chair, which I will let her talk to you about here in just a moment. She's also the president of the Rocky Mountain chapter of the Association of Threat Assessment Professionals. She is a board delegate and scholarship chair for the Colorado Association of Latino and Latina Administrators and Superintendents. And last but certainly not least, she is the mom of 2 school-age children and has previously volunteered in her kids' district, serving as the school accountability chair. Last but not least, we have Ian Lopez. Ian is the Director of Security at Cherry Creek School District. He spent more than 20 years in various police departments across the Denver metro area. Ian made the move to Cherry Creek School District in 2019, where he is the aforementioned Director of Security. Under his leadership, Cherry Creek has updated their approach to both physical and psychological safety. In addition to updating Cherry Creek's safety protocol, Ian and his team continue to work closely with global security consultants to improve efficiency across the entire district. So welcome to all our panelists, and without further ado, I would like to have Hylet talk to you a little bit about the I Love You Guys Foundation, as it directly ties into the principles that we'll be talking about shortly. So Hylet, let me toss it over to you, and I'll pick it up once you are through.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. I just wanted to share that the panelists today will be speaking on behalf of some protocols we've utilized through the I Love You Guys Foundation. So the I Love You Guys Foundation was founded following tragedy, unfortunately for the Keys family. And in this, 2 of the programs that were developed was the Standard Response Protocol and the Standard Reunification Method. The Standard Response Protocol is 5 actions that are for all hazards that provide common language under the ICS structure and are a great framework to be utilized in a crisis. That is not the only time it's needed, but it gives you a good idea. The other element is Standard Reunification Method, and this is when there's something that occurs that's unusual and requires a special release period, whether it's in schools or in communities, that you will need some more structure and consistency and accountability, whether it overlays with our Standard Response Protocol. So our panelists will be speaking from experience utilizing these two programs. More information can be found on iloveyouguys.org. But as Valcom is a partner with Love, we want to make sure that we introduce this concept so you can follow along with us.
Thank you for that, Hylet. And moving right into those 4 principles, the first of which is preparation. And I unfortunately don't think that Paula Hans has been able to make it on the call, or is she present? Can we all hear from Paula?
I am here.
Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Fantastic. Yes, we absolutely can.
Excellent.
And hopefully you heard that spectacular introduction that I gave to you a little earlier ago. If not, you have to just trust us that it was stellar. So I'm going to toss the first question to you, and in your role as public information there at Douglas County School District, how do you prepare for emergency situations?
So I think the first step seems pretty basic, but it's not surprising when I go and talk to different communications teams and they are not prepared. Step 1, having templates ready. So whether you're a superintendent or principal, communications professional, making sure you have templates ready. We have templates ready for emergency situations, both for the impacted school itself, but also for the community at large. So in our situation, in our district, we have templates for immediate notification. Anytime the SRP is activated, any of the five posture changes that were just mentioned, we send notification to those staff members and parents at the impacted school immediately. We have templates ready for that. We have templates ready for the follow-up communication that needs to happen after that. But we also are prepared for a large-scale situation. So if something happens, we take care of that impacted school community. But after that, you need to take care of your entire school district. So we have templates, examples ready to send to the entire system once the incident or the large-scale response ends. And really, the preparation looks different, whether it's the communications team, it's the superintendent's cabinet, it's school staff, it's your security team. One of the biggest things that I think is critical is really working on incorporating tabletop drills throughout the year for all of your different teams. And I'm sure many people, on this call, everyone is familiar with tabletop drills, but one of the things I do that's kind of unique with our communications team is I actually take them to a school during a lockdown drill. I specifically choose an elementary school because it is the most jarring to see our youngest learners participating in a lockdown drill. And we have people on our team who are parents, we have people who are not parents. Some have an emotional response after watching that lockdown drill and seeing what happens. Some have more of an emotional response than others. But it's hearing that automated message that is played in the school when the SRP is activated. It's viewing the drill and going classroom to classroom with law enforcement as they clear the different rooms. This really takes the wondering out of the equation should a major event occur. So our team sees firsthand that our students and staff know what SRP is, what to do in those situations. And that way our focus can really remain on taking care of our parents, communicating with them during that situation, letting them know what's happening at their child's school. So we really want to give them that firsthand look and help prepare them for that situation.
Thank you for that, Paula. Thank you so much. Next, Hylet, as Director of Judicial Services there at Jeffco Public Schools, how do you prepare for emergency situations?
Yeah, so the nature of my work is really intervention based, but under our Department of School Safety, what we like to do is we like to host conversations early on with internal and external stakeholders to make sure that we are prepared for when the situations arise, whether that's flash flood advisory and you need to have students on watch so they can go home safely, or you have something more significant and severe like a weapon brought into your school. You want to make sure that you know who is going to be a partner in that conversation, who's going to be a partner in response, and that all parties are able to address that. So to Paula's point about templates being prepared, that's one of the things that having a standardization that you can quickly play in the details of the situation and get it out in under 3 to 5 minutes to those internal and external folks. Also, what scope and level you're going to be sharing communication to. Is it just building level families? Is it the whole general community? And also with those external stakeholders, if it's law enforcement, maybe your county emergency management office, are they sending out information? So you're aligned with their PIOs, and that all of this can be staggered in a timely manner, that families are not seeking information, but rather feeling prepared and know what to do. The last thing I'll add on that is that you are practicing this early on those really low level, low risk situations so that you do build capacity, confidence, and establish a practice with your communities and families and schools that they know and understand when and how information is going to come out and feel prepared for that moment.
Excellent information. Thank you, Hylet. Ian, how about Cherry Creek School District? Where do you start? How do you prepare for emergency situations?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, if I look a little sleepy, it's because we were celebrating the big Nuggets victory last night. So go Nuggets. But to get back to the more serious conversation, really we focus everything and anchor everything in terms of our preparedness around the SRP. So our emergency operations plans are slated around that. And we also look at it from a classroom level, a building administrative level, and then a district level. And what I mean by that is, the SRP applies to us all universally as a school system, but there's different roles that each of those levels play when it comes to emergency preparedness. So we need to make sure that the classroom teachers and the students know what to do at their level. We need to know what administrators' responsibilities are for their level. And then ultimately, what is that district response? And that includes everybody from the district security team, the superintendent's office, maybe your incident command post, your crisis communications team, and all those folks. So you really have to sort of develop a plan that ties in all of those different levels and make sure that it's anchored around the SRP as those core principles. And just like Paula and Hylet mentioned, you have to work through this. You have to partner with your public safety responders so that you guys are all on the same page and understand when some of these events transition from maybe a law enforcement led response to a fire led response, maybe a medical led response. Depending on the situation, you can have those different agencies take lead roles in that, or maybe even for short durations of time before it transitions back to the school. So ultimately, every incident that you can come up with is a school-based incident, but not all of the incidents are long-term police or long-term fire or long-term EMS incidents. So I think that's one thing that we've noticed in our preparation is that the school district always has a role no matter what, because ultimately when all the first responders leave, we're stuck dealing with the recovery piece and then everything else that leads into getting ready to be ready for the next event.
Outstanding. So Dan, Chad, you guys have any follow-up questions on that first one? Shall we move right along?
No, I think just from what we've seen in dealing with similar school districts around the country, it's everything that's been brought up, and the preparation part and the drilling of those processes and procedures and knowing what you're going to do before the incident happens is just it's just critical. I did have one other thing. This is more of a housekeeping thing, but if any of the participants have questions, there's a Q&A section at the top of your screen, and we're going to be monitoring that. So if you have questions as we move along, feel free to put them in the Q&A and we'll pose those to the panel for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Well, the second part of that, the second key that we're going to tie into the preparation principle is, and I'll ask this question to Paula first again, we'll go in the same order, is how do you know that there's an emergency severe enough to put a school into lockdown?
Thank you for that question. Obviously, our law enforcement partnerships are key here, and we have incredible relationships with law enforcement. And the time to build those relationships is now, not in the midst of a crisis. So I cannot stress that enough, whether it's working with my direct counterparts, the PIOs in law enforcement, or even broadening it out and getting to know command staff. Now is the time to do that, not in the middle of a situation. So when there is a threat inside a school, we will obviously put a school into lockdown. But I think it's important to talk about the fact that we really take a different approach, and we treat every incident, every posture in the SRP protocol as a major incident. You know, it doesn't matter what the situation is. There are going to be parents at that school that this is a major incident to them. They may have had something happen recently in their lives that this triggers. They may have suffered some sort of significant loss. They may have a tie to a school shooting, whether it's personally as a parent or their child may have been through one. So in treating every incident as a major incident, we prioritize communication, we prioritize our response to really make sure we have the best resolution for everyone involved.
Thank you, Paula. Hylet, I'll let you take it from here. How do you know that there's an emergency severe enough to put a school in lockdown there at Jeffco Public Schools?
Yeah, so Jeffco Public Schools, we do rely also on our law enforcement agents a lot to help indicate when there's risks that are in the community that could be impacting us. We're also lucky enough to have school resource officers at most of our secondary level schools, and they are great eyes and ears within. But at the beginning of every school year, we train staff on the SRP, Standard Response Protocol, on those 5 actions, and really empower individuals, not just staff, but also students, to know what those actions are. And if they see a danger or risk that they feel is unsafe, to utilize and make those actions be a call in their building as well. So we learned from the Arapahoe High School shooting in 2013. It was a custodian who put the school in lockdown and helped prevent additional lives being lost that day. Any member of that school community should feel empowered to do so when and if they see danger. And being in Colorado, we have a lot of different causes for using these actions. It could be wildlife in the building. It could be an escalated community member. It could be the worst day situation. So we want to make sure anyone and everyone understands those parameters and knows that we will come together and have a consistent practice and protocol and response with our law enforcement agents being the ones to attend to that lockdown.
Thank you so much. Ian, I'll turn it over to you. How do you know that there's an emergency severe enough to put a school in lockdown there at Cherry Creek?
So the big thing that we focus on with our administrators and our staff, kids as well, but primarily those are the people that would be making the alert for a lockdown in our buildings. But typically we talk about the imminency of a threat, right? If there's a threat to life, what we try to reinforce is they don't necessarily have to get it right. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of discussion, you know, should we go into a secure perimeter? Should we go into a lockdown? Should we be in a hold? Sometimes school administrators, depending on their level of experience, may or may not feel comfortable knowing exactly what to do. But the thing that we try to talk about is, listen, we can't get it wrong, right? That's what we need to know. So when in doubt, if you feel like there's an imminent threat or an unknown threat in your building, then move that building into lockdown, and then we can err on the side of judgment. Or you know, we can review that process later, and then we can break it down. But the most important thing again is we don't have to get it right, we don't have to get it perfect, but we can't get it wrong. And that's what we really try to emphasize to the staff is if you see something that just doesn't look and feel right, then make the call. You're going to have response coming. And then if it's a false alarm or if it's a quickly remedied situation, we can communicate that back to our schools and to our classrooms that they're safe. And then we can get that building released back to normal and start that recovery process as soon as we can.
Great information. Thanks, Ian. And now, Paula, we'll start again with you. How is the decision made to activate your emergency action plan in those instances? So what are the nuts and bolts involved with how that plan is activated?
Sure. Thank you for that question. Obviously, lockdown is the one of the 5 SRP postures that we hope we never have. But unfortunately, we have, and we have to prepare for it. So if a lockdown should occur, our emergency action plan is activated immediately. Multiple members of the crisis response team are activated as well. And we have a unique situation in our district. We are actually spread across about 850 square miles, and we have 4 different law enforcement jurisdictions. We have 3 police departments and 1 sheriff's office, all with you know, unique differences And so the standard response protocol for us is really key. It makes sure that we have that common shared language. We're all speaking the same language. We're all on the same page and using that commonality when there is a situation. So we work closely with our school resource officers to determine if that SRP posture has changed. The emergency action plan is activated, and those of us on the crisis team start reaching out to our counterparts at law enforcement agencies. The other part that I want to stress is, here in Colorado, we do have a unique situation as we've experienced a number of school shootings and other crisis situations. And we also have great partnerships with our counterparts in other school districts. They've called me, I've called them, and we truly come together during the worst of the situations to support one another and pitch in and help when needed.
Thank you. Outstanding. Hylet, I'll let you take it from here.
Similar to Paula, we also have many jurisdictions we work with, but those early conversations, the standard response protocol has been pretty key for us on the shared language amongst all of that, the span of distance, the span of jurisdictions. And then we also have, we follow incident command structure. So we do have emergency operations centers, we have a centralized dispatch center, and we can get information in and out to those teams in a timely manner, whether it's through text message notifications, emails. Everyone has those tabletop exercises that are run regularly on the year to anticipate who's the primary, who's the secondary if they're unavailable, and know what the roles are before we get there.
Outstanding. Ian, your 2 cents worth.
So specifically talking about lockdown, we want to push that authority to initiate the lockdown action to the lowest level possible in the building. So again, to use Hylet's example from the Littleton shooting, custodian, a math teacher, anybody in that building should be authorized to make the call if they see a threat to start that initiation of the lockdown process. And we know that particularly in a lockdown, time is of the essence, right? Some of the other actions are a little bit more slow moving or could potentially be more precautionary. So in some of those cases, we have a little bit more of a check and balance where, somebody will say, hey, should we move into secure because of some outside threat that police have notified us? And that may take a minute or two, but that's usually precautionary in nature. But when there's an imminent issue and it's danger close, we need to make sure that that activation is quick, fast, and in a hurry. And so we rely a lot on some redundancies with our alert system. So we have the ability to activate our lockdown announcements and our alerts inside the building from, our radio system, which is connected to our Volcom alert system. We can push emergency buttons that are anchored into the walls. We can use software that multiple people within the building have access to, and we can even do that remotely from our dispatch center. So we really believe in the idea of having redundant layers available to initiate those actions, because again, when time is of the essence, you want to make sure that that alert is done very, very rapidly so that as many people can get behind locked doors and out of harm's way as possible.
We do have a couple of questions for the panel from the Q&A section. The first one is, how often during a school year do you do live drills for the SRP?
Go ahead.
I can take that one. So we mandate from our district security office, we coordinate 2 lockdown drills a year, and then the rest of the SRP drills, hold, secure, shelter, and evacuation, we leave up to the schools to schedule on their own accord. Here in Colorado, we're mandated to do monthly evacuation drills by the fire department. We also have severe weather that usually hits us at the beginning of the year and end of the year, so we try to make sure those are scheduled in those arenas or in those areas of time. And then hold is probably the newest one, and so that one is where we're trying to see how we work that one in. And that may be a little bit more of a tabletop exercise until we get more used to that, but it's really important for our standpoint that we coordinate all the lockdown drills. Those are the most critical. Those are the ones where we do an entire full audit of our entire system. So we check maps, we check keys, we check our alert systems, we bring in first responders and all that stuff to help us facilitate those drills so that our kids and staff get used to working with them and seeing them in the buildings. And that's what we've found to be the best practice. And then with some additional tools we have, we can do some lower key lockdown drills using some different technology, our red bag technology, so that we can do quick drills just to make sure we get some more repetitions through that.
And a follow-up question is, are there grant funds available to support the school moving toward SRP drilling and tabletop exercises?
There are grant dollars. I would check with your state school safety resource centers to have assistance in drafting and looking at what's available and based on deadlines. But there are many organizations and school districts that have sought out assistance and training through I Love You Guys specifically using those grant dollars.
Outstanding. Thank you. So,
and you probably want to mention here is that the SRP is free. So the SRP is something that you don't have to pay for, just a matter of, I guess the only cost you'd probably incur is just production of the material, but that's a nonprofit that's out there for all schools to utilize.
Thank you, Ian. Absolutely. I Love You Guys.org has all materials, including training materials, handouts, and flyers available for free. Aside from your printing costs, they're online.
I would like to jump in. I know we're running long. Warren, you're probably sweating right now, but
not at all.
As a partner with the I Love You Guys Foundation, we had the privilege of participating in the their winter summit, and during that time there were, I believe, about 180 participants either at the location or online, and they were all exactly the people that are participating in this webinar. They were school administrators, they were SROs, they were local police, and it was just an amazing several days of them sharing what worked and more importantly probably what didn't. And that's what the I Love You Guys Foundation can bring to you. It is that best practices from other school districts, other people who are in your exact positions, who maybe don't know the right answer, but can share what they've learned over time. And the I Love You Guys Foundation is just an amazing organization. If you're not familiar with them or not involved with them, feel free to contact us and we will put you in touch with the right people.
Outstanding. Thanks, Dan. So moving on from our first principle of preparation to the second, which is the delivery of those messages. We've planned everything. Now we have to make sure it gets to the right place at the right time. So Paula, starting with you, what means do you use to deliver the words and the actions of your SRP to the populace?
So our security and select staff are in communication over two-way radio. Once our dispatch team is notified, we use the Slack app to have a small contingency of staff. It's quite small for the size of our district, but we do that on purpose. So dispatch can notify those who need to know of the incident, the emergency that is in progress, and we can ask, for specific details if we're missing something, for example, for communication purposes. We then use our emergency messaging system to push that information out via email, phone, and text to all of the parents and staff at the impacted school. Depending on the level of the situation, we may also share it on our district website and or the school website, the impacted school, as well as our social media channels, and in some instances reaching out to local media to help get the word out.
Excellent. Hylet, how about in your situation there at Jeffco?
Yeah, so for in-building notification, we have two-way radios. We use the internal PA system to alert all individuals in the building. We also have visual alerts with strobe lights in public spaces. So folks are being informed live in the moment of what's going on. Similar to Paula, we also have information going out via messaging. We have ready op alerts for any staff who might be between buildings. So they're also notified upon arrival of what's taking place. And then we use those templates that were referenced earlier to make sure that communication is going out live to families. And one of the things that I can't stress enough is whether you feel you are ready to share communication out, maybe you don't have enough information, you don't even know what's going on, you just know something's going on, that is enough information to be shared. If you don't provide something, families will arrive on scene, they will seek out information from other sources. So even saying we're aware that there has been a protocol administered and we are investigating or we're working with law enforcement, that is a great start. And then frequent and constant communication. So updating if things are live. Ian alluded to sometimes these are fluid moments and we might move between actions from a secure to a hold back again, making sure that is continuing to happen. So it's not just a one-time message and we're done. You need to follow up, you need to continue on and make sure these elements are all happening live and from your perspective in collaboration with your partners.
Outstanding. Ian, I know you have a lot to add here, so what means do you use to deliver those words and actions?
So very similar to both Jeffco and Douglas, we use ReadyOp internally for a lot of our notifications to all the staff that something's happening in building. We're now about probably 80% of the way complete with all of our facilities having the Volcom system. What's unique about that is we can, again, activate that through multiple means within the building. We can also activate that system remotely from our dispatch center. So that means that we could do it from a distance and let folks know. So for instance, with severe weather, that's something where we can make mass notifications to multiple buildings all at once. We too have a two-way radio system that we can use both in building and then also connect to district channels so that we can talk with our folks as we're responding in. And then we also use a product called Red Bag that allows us, once an SRP action, particularly lockdown, is activated, we can have our teachers inside of the classroom get direct secure communication with their district security dispatch center, and then ultimately from my district safety team once we arrive to the scene. So between those things, we're able to really deliver messages very quickly to the people involved in the incident, who then will share information with people outside the incident, their parents and guardians and family members. And then what that helps us do is kind of quell some of the anxiety that exists around that, right? If they don't know what's going to happen, they're going to sort of create their own narrative. So the sooner we can tell parents we know that something's going on and that we have response happening and that we will update them with information as we get it, then they're much more likely to listen to our requests to stay away and to go to a reunification center, things like that, without any really valid conversation and communication with parents. Then they're going to do their own thing, because absent of information, they're going to really, really want to get that information. And that's when you're going to have crowd control issues and other things. So I think, is again, just like with our activation of the alerts, our communication methods have to have some redundancy in them as well, so that we can get at it through multiple means.
Outstanding. Do we have any chat questions there, Dan, that we need to pose, or do you guys want to add anything at the moment?
No, there's one person that has their hand up. I just want to reiterate, ask your questions through the Q&A section of the chat window if you can, please. Thank you.
Awesome. With that, we'll move along to the second part of that question and this is for Paula. What have you done to take advantage of your existing systems within your facilities to sort of solidify and bolster the delivery of the words and actions of your SRP?
Yes, so as I mentioned earlier, anytime SRP posture is changed, our dispatch notifies us via the Slack app. And our goal is to have communication out and into the inbox, the phone, the text of parents and staff at the impacted school within 10 minutes of us being notified. So we send that immediate communication. We make parents aware of this communication system in practice at the beginning of the school year, so they know that it will be coming should something happen at their child's school. We talk about how they will be notified and why. So we send initial communication. We tell them it will be brief. It may not include a lot of details, but just as was mentioned earlier, we want to inform them of the situation and let them know something is going on. So our most common SRP posture change here in Douglas County is secure for wildlife. we are in Colorado, so we have a lot of wildlife here. So even if there is a bear near a school and our elementary kids can't go out to recess because the bear is hanging out in the neighborhood, we notify parents of that. It's an SRP posture change. The school goes into secure posture, and we send that email, phone, and text. This significantly cuts down on the rumors and the rumor mill that typically spreads on social media and eventually makes its way to local media. And almost every single time, no matter what the situation is, they will say there's a lockdown. They automatically defer to lockdown, even though it's the worst of the situations, and it could seriously be because of a secure for wildlife on the playground. So we know that parents, community members will see law enforcement respond to that school, no matter what the situation is. So our practice is, even if it is something as minor as a bear near a school and we can't go out to recess, we send that email, phone, text notification immediately to parents and staff at that impacted school.
Awesome, thank you. Highlight, how have you taken advantage of your existing systems and spreading the word about your SRP?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that Ian mentioned just now was redundancy. And so being able to make sure that your communication methods and means have multiple touch points. So we do training, we do the tabletop exercises similar to Paula, but then in actual application of it, when something goes down, it feels like everything goes down. So if you are banking on those two-way radios, it's going to be the day the battery is low or out. Making sure that you do have multiple points of contact there and that you are anticipating the worst case moment. So making that happen early on and have frequent conversations about what ifs, those need to happen beforehand. One of the things that Paula kind of started to speak about is the communication with students and how that operates and what it looks like for families to understand how communication is going to go back out. I think for us, when these situations and these protocols are called, we also want to take into account our special needs students. And so if there is going to be a secure called, maybe you're doing an evacuation drill, which is also AKA your fire drill that happens monthly. What is put into their IEP or their accommodations to also address how you communicate with students beforehand and afterwards, because those are unique circumstances that might also elevate the amount of calls you're going to be receiving on those worst day moments. So the more you can plan, the more you can prepare, the better in positioning your advantage is going to be when those crises come up.
Outstanding. Ian, how have you taken advantage of existing systems there at Cherry Creek?
So again, one of the things that we tried to do was tie in some of the systems that we had so that they could work together kind of as an ecosystem, especially around the alert and the notification piece. So we were able to tie some of our radio systems through SchoolSafe into our Volcom system. So what we essentially did is made our radios become an activation method for the alert system, right? So since radios are used on a day-to-day for day-to-day business inside the schools, a lot of that verbal communication is going to happen. So if you can put some radios in the hands of people that can then alert the overhead PA system and all of the message boards, which generates the screen pops and the automatic text messaging to all the right people and the right responders, you can get help coming right away. So we took a look at that. We also took a look at on the back end about how we can communicate with our teachers and students. There's a lot of conversation about how do we notify parents, but some of the people specifically during a lockdown, the people that are usually in the dark, so to speak, both literally and figuratively, are the teachers, right? They're asked to lock down. They all of a sudden get this huge adrenaline dump. They're worried now for their physical safety. The sooner we can communicate to them what is happening, they can then reiterate what's happening with their students, and then we can diminish and decrease some of that psychological impact that we have on kids. So we use that red bag tool in Cherry Creek for that specific purpose. That's what we design it for, and that's why we utilize that, so that we can start that recovery process, as soon as the incident starts to happen. Unfortunately, we've had a few, false lockdown alerts that have happened because of either some technical issues that we've identified, or in some cases just human error. But nonetheless, when we've had those, we've been able to immediately communicate into those classrooms and let those teachers know that it was a false alarm or it was something that was quickly resolved and that they were safe. And we could let them know that either district security personnel or law enforcement would be coming to their door. So that for us was a big, big part of our communication plan, right? Because forever, the teachers and the kids in those classrooms were the ones that had the least amount of information.
Outstanding. Appreciate that. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think this is a very important topic for a lot of our customers, right? It is, we know we need to notify everybody that's under our care, the teachers, the students, the staff. We don't have an unlimited budget. We have to be able to do this for a certain amount of money. And that is one thing that we really bring to the table, is that you can utilize a lot of existing systems that you may never imagine would be part of your emergency notification system. Those existing money that you've already spent in an IP telephone system, existing money, maybe it's a marquee that's out in front of the school, and you want to utilize that to tell people, do not enter this facility, we're in lockdown. It's kind of incredible the different things that you can tie together, like the red bag system that Ian's mentioned a few times, and screen pops on computers or displays you have around your facility, things that are already in place that you can utilize to really get life-saving information out during these times of need.
Outstanding. Thank you. And moving on to the next principle that ties closely into the delivery is the methods of delivery, or reach. And Paul, I want to start with you. Like, what gaps in coverage in any of these following areas? And we don't have to touch on all of them because we're running out of time quickly, because we have a lot to talk about, but that's great. So if we had to look at all the different areas where your message reaches to, and I'll just touch on those once here for everybody, and then you can pick whichever one you've run across where there was a gap that you've had to address, whether it's inside or outside of your buildings, whether it's something like the remote areas that we talked about there with wildlife on the playgrounds and so forth, and ball fields and things like that. On person, like how are there gaps that you found that it would be remedied easily by sending something directly to parents or the community itself, and then the parents? So where did your organization there at Douglas County ever run across any of the gaps, and how did you address those?
So I will touch on two of those, specifically the visual, the outside part, and the parents. Visual notification, we have a lot of variable location employees, is what we call them, staff who move between buildings and schools throughout the day. And like was mentioned earlier, strobe lights, marquees, different colored flashing lights outside, that is an area that we are continuing to work on. That is a challenge for us. Obviously, if there's a large scale incident, there will be a large law enforcement presence outside that school. But even for the lower level SRP posture changes, we want to work on having more of a visual outside notification system. So that is something we're working on in Douglas County. And then for the parents, we have really worked on explaining to them in this day and age, we will never beat their child with a cell phone. They will always get a text from their child's cell before we can communicate with them. So we will never win that race. They will always hear from their child first, and they may hear something from social media first, because as we all know, the challenges of social media, nothing has to be verified. People can put whatever they want out on social media and say whatever they want that is happening at a school and make stories up. So we communicate early on with parents. We developed something called a Parent's Guide to Crisis Communications. It's a very short and concise document, but it basically lets them know of those challenges. We will not win the race of a child with a cell phone or social media, but when we communicate with them, we will do so as quickly as possible. It may be brief, but it will be confirmed factual information. We will continue to follow up throughout the incident until it is resolved, letting them know of, if there's a reunification, where they need to go to pick up their child and what they need to bring. Just really outlines the parents' role during a crisis, as well as our role as the school district and what parents can expect.
Outstanding info. Thanks, Paula. Hylet, how about you? Are there any of these areas that that you had to address there at Jeffco?
Yeah, well, I echo similar to Paula, but I'll build upon, so we have infrastructure that pre-existed some of our student safety identified points now, right? And so each year as we're drilling and we're doing those practice moments, we're also updating, like Ian had referenced, making sure the systems and equipment are working properly. And one of the areas that we acknowledge that we can do better in is with outside areas, especially, you know, track and field areas, football fields. And so when I mentioned the redundancy point earlier in your form of communication, we try and get creative with how we address those points. So we may not have the funding this fiscal year to put in a brand new PA system out that works better in that space, but we have two-way radios. And so training staff members, hey, here's a second means. It might give us a 3 to 5 second delay in getting the information, but we can still activate our protocols as needed. We can still have that open line of communication. And so once again, thinking outside the box and not just limiting yourself to what do dollars provide for us, but what do we have in-house and how do we utilize that in a smart and effective way?
Very good. Very good. Ian, I know you've had to address some of these, so.
Yeah, I agree very much with what Pilot said, and specifically earlier around the alert and warning mechanisms, right? That's the most important piece of, especially during a lockdown. If there's a threat on your campus, how quickly can we make audible, visual, text alert, screen pop alerts, all of that kind of stuff? How quickly can we alert the people within the building to get to a safe place immediately so that they can activate their protocol? So earlier I talked about, you know, the administrator's role might be to how quickly can we activate that alert, and then in the classrooms, their role is how quickly can we lock those doors and get the lights shut off and move safely out of sight, right? So as soon as we can get that happening, then we're all better off for it. And then what that does is set the stage then for our responders. So we want that all to be automated as much as possible so that everything's going off as quickly as it can, and then those notifications are being made to the right people. So whether that's your district security dispatch center or your district security armed personnel, whether that's your SROs or your law enforcement dispatch centers, however you guys design it, it's very important to build as much automation into that with redundancy so that if you ever do have a failure point, you'll still have some backup means to deliver that information.
Outstanding. And then finally, the final principle, which is arguably the most important, is the time principle. And Paula, there at Douglas County, how do you ensure that alerts are delivered in the timeliest manner possible?
So we have about just under 160,000 contacts between staff and parents in our emergency messaging system. So we want to make sure that system is working well. I know when I came to the district, we were utilizing a different system that was not operating well, especially when something would happen in Colorado and multiple school districts would be sending out messaging to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So we conduct a biannual test of our emergency messaging system that we currently utilize. It not only tests the responsiveness of the system so we can make sure it's operating as it should, but it also allows people to confirm that they're receiving the notifications they wish to receive. The test includes instructions on how to set up your preferences through your parent portal, if you want email, phone, text. If you didn't receive the notifications you wanted to, how to correct that. So they, you know, parents, guardians, staff can go in and update their preferences now, rather than finding out in the middle of a major crisis situation that they're not receiving notifications. And then for students and staff, we unfortunately do not have the red bag technology as Cherry Creek does, but we recently installed lock boxes in all of our schools that contain, you know, a master set of keys and the building floor plans for law enforcement. But it also includes scripts. So when, for example, a lockdown is resolved, it will still take, you know, quite some time for law enforcement to go room to room and clear those rooms and get students and staff out. So we have scripts in those lock boxes that are read over the PA system, either by the principal, a school administrator, or even, you know, law enforcement commander, following a major incident, letting students and staff know the incident is resolved. They need to stay put. They need to stay in their classroom until they're cleared, but they can take a breath. They know that everything's okay, and it lets them know that the incident has been resolved.
Excellent information. Hylet, how about you? How do you ensure alerts are delivered in a timeliest manner?
So I want to spotlight real quick Douglas County. I know of a middle school principal down there who has done a fantastic job at every opportunity of school events, whether it's a 8th grade middle school choir concert or it's the welcome back barbecue. He takes a few minutes at the start of each event and re-emphasizes that update to communication on student information systems, making sure that their information is live, it's what they need. If there's any secondary adults who can have access to picking up a student in a moment of like a reunification, he does these little safety spotlights. So I just want to say I love that because it re-emphasizes what the district has in structure play and that it continues forward. But I would also add on the timeliest pace. So we learned students are going to be on it. They're letting their parents know, they're giving them updates. We're not trying to be anybody but ourselves. We want to make sure that we're doing the best, we're giving accurate information, and there's no way that we can be the first at this point with our new technologies and the forms of communication that are out there. But I do think those early moments of everyone is on board, we know the standardization, we have the templates ready to go, we're taking a look at that, and that we are also navigating this point of just accuracy and updating. So when we're on our standard response protocol, if we are shifting, those scripts that Paula mentioned are a fantastic idea for law enforcement to be able to say, hey, we have cleared the building, we're going from a lockdown to a hold, because we still need the hallways clear for law enforcement to finalize and clean up whatever's left. And making sure that that is all happening live, quickly, and that it's consistent, because we know that words matter. And the moment that we are having any aggressive language, any tones, if we're using exercise instead of drill, we're starting to escalate and bring in new trauma that's unnecessary. So I would say timeliness starts before the incident, and I would hold to that piece as best as possible.
Great point. Ian, how do you ensure alerts are delivered in a timeliest manner there at Cherry Creek?
So again, just to piggyback on what they said, it's the preparation, right? We're going to fall back to our highest level of training when an incident happens. And if we haven't trained or prepared very well, we're probably not going to perform very well. So that's probably the most critical piece. So whether that's training and preparation on your alert systems within the building, that's training and preparation with your communications piece to your parents and your community, all that has to be sort of discussed and table talked and practiced and exercised ahead of time. You know, the one thing I would just say again, the most critical piece for us is to make sure in an emergency that those people in building, the ones that are in potential harm's way, get that notification as quickly as possible. So we've really made a concerted effort to create announcements within our PA system that are automated, that tie directly back to the SRP. So in some cases, you know, principals might come on and make a verbal announcement, but then they talk maybe too much, or they make vague sort of safety alerts, and then people are sort of unsure of what they're supposed to do. So what we want to do is make those things automated, because under stress, we don't want you to get it wrong. We'd rather you just play the message that's already pre-scripted and tells everyone what to do. So that's an arena that I think we've tried to design and implement during our drills and our exercises, just so that it's consistent from school to school, grade level to grade level, and administrator to administrator, or administrator to administrator.
Excellent. Dan, Chad, any follow-up questions for our panelists before we move on to more questions from the attendees?
No, I think I'm good. Like I said, just to kind of reiterate, you know, it all starts with that preparation piece. Everything here hinges on that, right? That kind of fills in the rest of your delivery reach and time is through that preparation, just kind of to reiterate what Ian had said. So it all starts there. And, you know, one of his key things is if you don't prepare, then you're probably not going to perform very well. So, you know, to me, that's a huge piece of this.
So you're essentially saying the typically the strongest link in the chain needs to be that preparation link.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Because there again, that fills in the rest of the delivery reach and time. Through preparation, you see your gaps in delivery and reach, and how long it takes you, the time it takes you to reach those folks. Doing it in a non-emergency situation when you're training is is way easier to fill those gaps and meet those needs, right? And that's one thing too that I will say about the I Love You Guys Foundation. By their concerted effort with law enforcement and RSOs and administration, they're constantly evolving their standard response protocols. As everyone learns from different instances, and everybody's emergency is different, yet a lot of them are the same. So the more you can bring in and learn and adapt those SRPs and evolve those, the better your preparation is. So that's a huge piece.
Outstanding. Well, if there are no more questions from the chat, and you guys have monitored that, so if there are, just let me know before we finish up here. But I just want to mention that we will continue this conversation on LinkedIn a little bit. You can follow us there, and I would definitely follow the I Love You Guys Foundation on LinkedIn as well. They post a lot of great information there that's very useful, and definitely check out iloveyouguys.org. You can also see us at valcom.com. We've got a lot of information about what we just talked about today. I'd like to take a few minutes to thank our panelists. We greatly appreciate your expertise, your input, and your willingness to spend time sharing with other people. And if there's nothing else to add, I will go ahead and wrap this up, and we will see you on the next one.